We're going to learn what real optimum health looks like. We're going to explore what our body is doing under chronic stress, and then we'll explore what phase of burnout you might be in. I'm going to start by asking a simple question, really. How are you doing today? How do you feel? And you can keep that answer to yourself for now, but people ask this all the time, right? But do we really actually answer this truthfully? Now, if you were doing great in this moment in time, that means that you may have no symptoms or any complaints. And so when it comes to your health, you may have chronic symptoms every day. And because you have them every day and it's your baseline, you might be great on that particular day at that particular moment because it's not severe, right? It might be just a moderate flare up. And again, you're used to feeling that way. And certainly, when you are used to feeling that way, you're not actually in optimal health. And most people don't seek any attention on their health until they have symptoms. And the issue with that is once you have symptoms, dysfunction and imbalance have already ensued. So when a symptom does pop up, we immediately have this urge to take something to relieve the symptom. If we have low energy and fatigue, maybe an afternoon coffee. If we have a headache, pop a Tylenol or perhaps another coffee. It may relieve the symptom, but we're not necessarily asking the question, what is the cause? We may mask it with a quick fix. Then the symptoms will likely return at some point, sometimes worse. We may even grab something stronger for the symptom, move from coffee to espresso perhaps, or something stronger than Tylenol. So even seeking supplements to help our bodies, we figure, well, that might work. It worked for so and so. But you're not knowing what you're targeting. You might go to the vitamin shop, you talk to the clerk behind the counter, or you go to the local pharmacy and find a supplement that you read about online. And these things might help you short term, but never getting to the causal factor, what's going on, because the symptom is not the problem. What is causing the symptom is the problem. So it's not removing the problem when you're just masking the symptoms. And it could actually be making it worse. So you finally end up with worsening dysfunction that turns into a diagnosis or an illness. And so you may end up going to the doctor. They told you that all your labs look fine, right? Everything looks great. The tests are normal, but the symptoms continue to worsen, and you continue to self-medicate until finally, over time, you end up back at the doctor. You don't have any answers, but then you have a diagnosis. So if you had investigated your symptoms before they turned into a diagnosis, back when you were self-medicating for those symptoms, what if you had looked for the causal factor then, looked for those imbalances, found healing opportunities, and took action? You may not have that diagnosis at the end of the day. So this is where I want to present the wellness meter. And if you look down the middle there, it says no symptoms. And that's, we're feeling pretty good, right? We don't have any symptoms, nothing's really going on. Or you may be one of those people where you're feeling pretty good, your symptoms aren't too bad, so you don't really consider them. So when symptoms first started, they may not be what conventional medicine deems pathological in nature, which is a disease or illness. And those symptoms may not even point to anything on standard lab values. Therefore, we don't receive a diagnosis. We get that everything looks fine. But then those symptoms persist. And as we move to the right, our health weakens even more until finally we end up with a medical diagnosis, but only when the internal chaos has caused such an imbalance that we get the diagnosis or pathology, and in some cases, a non-reversible one. And so medical management provides symptom relief with pharmaceuticals, with very little lifestyle interventions such as nutrition or other strategies. So this wellness meter, when looking at it, we have no symptoms in the middle. We consider that good health. Then when we move to the right toward those symptoms and diagnosis, this is the sick care model. This is the way the standard healthcare model operates. And as we move from the no symptoms to the left, we move toward optimal health. So when we're looking at this meter, On the left, we're talking about optimal health, and optimal health recognizes high energy, strong immunity, cellular function. Your body's balanced, you're feeling great. And when we have the sick care model, we have symptoms and dysfunction. We have a diagnosis or an illness, and then we have eventual decline from there. So to experience true wellness or optimal health, moving left on that meter, we're striving for prevention. We're striving for balance, bring the body to balance. We call that homeostasis. Your vitality is robust. We're not just waiting for things to break. Have you ever had a doctor say your lab range, fill in the blank, we'll take thyroid, for example, it's borderline. They say it's borderline, but we'll keep an eye on it. Come back in 6 months. And many times with this conversation, there's not much mention of intervention, what to do about it. We'll see you back in 6 months or a year and we'll recheck. We'll see where it's at then. And that's waiting for things to break. That's the system. And so instead, we want to look at how we can bring everything to balance. And we call this imbalance that's happening as an FDN, metabolic chaos. And that's what causes dysfunction and eventually disease. And metabolic chaos is essentially a weakened state of health. You're moving to the right of that meter, and it's where hidden stressors have caused that malfunction. HIDDEN, we have what's causing those imbalances. Those stressors are hormones, immune system, digestion, detoxification, energy production, the nervous system, and also oxidative stress. And the thing is, we can have imbalances in these areas, but because our body is amazing and it knows how to heal itself, it will try to compensate for those imbalances. And we can go a really long time, in many cases, dealing with those imbalances and our body compensating for them. And it's really a vicious cycle until it just can't do it anymore. And our body was designed to work for us. It's constantly attempting to put things back into balance. And so even if something started in one of these areas, it's going to touch another area. So it could be the cause of or the result of the other area being imbalanced. And that's kind of what this chart is looking at. This is all the areas that are touched by each other. And there's a lot of symptoms floating around that chart. But this is what happens. We start to see things get out of balance.